Hello, everyone. I'd like to share with you a resource that I use to explain the highly effective practices of the 7 habits of highly effective people, and how we can use those 7 habits of highly effective people to really help students understand their own social and emotional learning, and to increase that development. And so with that, I'll share my screen so that you could see the document that I'm talking about. And this is a document that I created to help understand really defining what each habit means. Now, when Dr. Covey was doing his research, what he was looking for, is like, hey, what are those principles that people that have been able to overcome obstacles and create a positive impact with their lives in the world, what are those principles that are common that they use? And so when he was doing, and he studied lots of people's lives with biographies and autobiographies, and in the end of his research, he came down to 26 different principles bubbled up to the top. And so, and these are principles that I call them character traits and or principles that aren't anything new. His genius wasn't about the principles. His genius was just kind of organizing them in a way to make it so that it's just understandable. And so what he first did was like, okay, well, with this person, what are those first principles that they needed to use to get them started? And so he just kind of organized them in a very nice digestible way, and then created these umbrella statements. And the umbrella statements are what I call the habits. And so what you'll see here, for example, habit 1, be proactive. And what does that mean? And really what those are, those characters and principles behind be proactive is responsibility, choice, accountability, initiative, and resourcefulness. And what we find is that characters are hardly ever used in isolation. They're actually used in combination with other characters and principles when we actually see it in action. And so sometimes just talking about characters or principles, it's abstract. And so from there, what we do is we go to what Dr. Covey called the highly effective practices. And really what that is those characters and principles in action. Hey, what does it look like when these principles, these characters and principles are in action? And so for habit 1, what that looks like is pause and respond based on principles and desired results. It looks like the people that are using those principles and have that character, they use proactive language. They focus on their circle of influence, they focus on things they have control of, as opposed to things they don't have control of or influence over. And then they're a transition person. And so then to even simplify that even further, inserted some I statements here, so that with these I statements, we can actually say, okay, someone that's living these characters and principles would be able to say, hey, I could say these I statements, and that shows that I'm actually living these characters and principles. And so that's how this document has been laid out. And so you can go through each of the habits. Habit 2, what are those characters or principles that are used with habit 2 is vision, commitment, and purpose. What does it look like in action? You define outcomes before you act. You create and live by a personal mission statement. Hey, what's that going to look like? What is the I statements for that? I set goals for myself. I think about how my choices will impact the future, and I do meaningful work. And so I'm not just doing, I'm actually doing with purpose. I'm figuring out what my purpose is and the impact, the positive impact that I want to make with whatever situation that I'm in. And I'm making sure the things that I do are congruent with the positive impact that I want to make with those people that are around me. And so you could go through each of the habits and see, okay, well, here are those characters that make up that habit statement. So put first things first. We have focus, integrity, discipline, and prioritization. What does that look like in practice? Those characters and principles in action? Well, we focus on our highest priorities. We eliminate the unimportant. We plan every week, and we stay true in the moment of choice. And what are some I statements that we would be able to say if we were actually doing that? It's I make a schedule and dedicate time to my big rocks each day. I'm organized. I stay focused. I try to minimize distractions, and I regroup when I get off task. So I invite you to take a look at this document and really get to know what the 8 habits. I added in the eighth habit in there. What really makes those habits, and what are those 26 principles or character traits that make up the 7 habits? If we include the 8th habit, it's 28 characters or principles that make up the 8 habits. As far as the highly effective practices or characters or principles in action, we're going to find 20 of those for habits 1 through 7, and 22 of those if you go through to habit 8. So I leave this with you, and I'll have the link in the description of this video to help you become more familiar with the 7 habits and how the way it's designed. It's designed in a way to make it so that actually these characters and principles are more real. And we can actually practice and have practices to align ourselves and ensure that we're congruent with these characters and principles that we're trying to develop in ourselves as we model for our students, and will develop in our students as well. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you will find this beneficial for you personally, and that it helps you understand the layout and design of the 7 habits of highly effective people.